Next up, we'll hear excerpts of an interview Thistle did with Venice Allan, British women's rights campaigner who recently helped to organize a grassroots speaking event for any woman to get up on her soapbox and express herself at the historic Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, London. Thistle caught up with Venice via Skype last week to learn more about the event and to chat with the notorious Dr. Radfam. You can hear the full interview with Miss Allan by clicking on the Interviews tab on WLRN's WordPress site.
Can you introduce yourself to our listeners who may not be familiar with the work that you do, and just tell us a little bit about, who you are?
I don't know what to say. I'm a mother of 2 boys, and I'm a jewelry maker. And I have just been involved in, I'm just one of many British women who's been fighting the reforms to the Gender Recognition Act here in the UK for the last couple of years. And there's lots of different women all working on it from different angles. And we've done pretty well over here.
And what's your angle? How have you been working on it?
Well, nearly 3 years ago, I just tried to organise a local event where we talked about what is gender. And my aim was to get people from a couple of speakers from each side of the argument. And, at that point, I hadn't really peaked trans myself. I did honestly think that we could just talk about it and kind of come to some compromise position, and then it all just blew up really. The venue got cancelled, then we had to move to a different venue, and we met at Speaker's Corner, and a woman was Maria McLaughlin was hit to the ground by 3 young men who think they're women, and so I just kind of got thrown in the deep end really.
So that original speaking event, I think it was called, What is Gender?
What is Gender? Right? The Gender Recognition Act and Beyond.
Yeah, that
we
really
specifically
kicked off.
Yeah,
we started a new. I just want to say that I feel like you and British women are the ones who kicked off the idea of holding events, speaking events, where there would be like a public debate. I tried in my town.
Yeah.
Upon somebody's suggestion, because the trans activists started coming down on me in 2013, 2014, so pretty early on. And somebody's suggestion was, well, you should hold a public debate, a talk about it.
Yeah.
And I tried, and they wouldn't allow me to, the trans activists would not allow for there to be a public debate or discussion about it. So you really broke through that, and now it's
I mean, we are and we aren't, like, still. I mean, I've organised, I think, around 10 events now, and lots of other groups and women have organised different events. I'd say there's probably been about 50 events in the last 3 years, 2.5 years since then in the UK, and still you have to, have a secret venue which you release on the day. The one time we booked a venue and we announced in advance where it was in Bristol, and a huge crowd of trans activists came outside, and the venue was under huge pressure to cancel, but they were just really great people who just stuck their heels in and said, no, we're not going to cancel. But we had a huge demonstration outside. What was so interesting at the most recent event that we organised at Speaker's Corner again on Women's Day on the 8th of March, we didn't have any trans activists come. But the very next day, another group, Women's Place UK, had organised, no, it wasn't Women's Place UK, the Labour Women's Declaration had organised an event the following evening. And again, there were loads, and they let off smoke bombs, and it was horrible.
Wait, the Labour, what organization hosted a speaking event the day after yours at Speaker's Corner?
No. It was in a community centre just in the shadow of Grenfell Tower in West London, and it wasn't a Women's Day event. It was the Labour Women's Declaration. It was called Defend Me or Expel Me, and it was all the people who were responding to what the Labour leadership campaign was saying about signing the trans pledge. I don't know how up on our local stuff you are over there in Madison, but yeah, so they couldn't really do anything at Speaker's Corner because it's just a public place. And after what had happened, they'd look so awful coming along again, and there were police there and stuff, so they didn't come to that. But if you tried to do an event, if I or anyone else tried to do an event about gender, and you said we're going to do it in such and such a place, like I tried to do it, we tried to announce it at Millwall Football Club a couple of years ago, and within a day they had just been what's the word, just inundated with complaints, the football club, and they stuck it out for like a week, and then they had to cancel because just too many people, politicians, high profile fans, people were telling them to stop, not to host us. Mm-hmm. So you have to be clever about it, but you can do it. You just have to be clever about it.
I mean, meeting. In Seattle, I feel on February 1st, American women successfully organized an event in conjunction and partnership with the Seattle Public Library.
Yes, I saw all the huge.
And there were 300 people there,
Yeah.
So that was.
Exactly.
What are your numbers like at these events?
I've never had that many. I think we had probably over 100 or maybe 150 at Bristol a couple of years ago, and I think the one outside at the Grenfell Tower one, the day after our Speaker's Corner one that I was just talking about, I think, I don't know, maybe 100. Certainly 200 turned up at the Labour conference outside the Women's Place meeting last September. But I think, the ones in Canada look even worse, don't they? I mean, I think it is worse for you. But again, it's when you do it in a building where you tell them it's going to be. See, the American libraries have a constitutional duty to host free speech, don't they? Mm-hmm. Whereas I know the New York Library cancelled on Wolf on a different occasion, but I think
within like 3 weeks, it was a January event in New York City, and then the next event was on February 1st.
So it's sort of hit and miss, but it's crazy that but now everything's changed again. Like with this virus, the whole world is shutting down. So who knows what's going to happen. The good news in Britain is that the gender identity bill in Scotland has been put on pause. So everything's just on pause, not just their surgery, all the legislation. But we just need to keep an eye on it. But everyone's thinking about other stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that sheds a light on how non-essential gender identity is to existence, and just being able to function and be, it's not real. And
especially when we're all on our own.
Yeah.
In our, in our homes. But that's going to be difficult for all kinds of people, isn't it? And then it's going to be wonderful for all other kinds of people. It's just hard to know what to say about it all at this point, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's really great to be able to feature British feminists and feminism for our April podcast. I got to talk with Katy and Naomi yesterday from Make More Noise.
Brilliant.
And you have an article on their blog site about the Speaker's Corner event, which was fabulous. It was so grassroots and so deeply historical.
I lovely, Thistle.
And was that
I
a Beatles
wish you'd been there.
that you were wearing? You had a Beatles jacket on, right? It looked like from Sgt. Pepper's.
I guess, I don't know. Not really, but it's a nice. Yeah.
Anyway,
it was really nice, and the rain and the umbrellas really added to it in a way, didn't it? To the video. I like it.
Yes. Yes. It is. It's brilliant. So,
That's why
it's
I
great.
really wanted to do it. I wanted to go back to Speaker's Corner and just do stuff where we're like, where anyone can stand up. It's not this, because although I've done a lot of these talks where you get 4 people on a panel and everybody sits there and listens and does questions at the end, it just was beginning to feel a little bit stale, that format. And, what do you do? Do you keep going around the country saying all the basics, or do you have really quite in-depth talks for people, and then that would alienate people who had just come to the issue, so it just got a bit boring, and everything was getting so expensive. There's all these judicial reviews going on, which are great, but they just cost tens of thousands of pounds. And I just thought, and then I bumped into Katy, and we just, because she was down in London, and we just decided, let's just do something that's virtually free in the place where talks go on, and whether they come or they don't come, it doesn't matter. And it was so great. And then I want to carry on going there when all this pandemic is over. And I think it will be, interesting to do that.
Yeah, because the British suffragists went there to stand on their soapbox. And like you said, it was so refreshing the way it was organized, how anyone could get up there, and that you had a literal speech way to elevate yourself, to literally get up on your soapbox and then preach out. I love how Sheila Jeffreys leaned over. Yes. And her arms, she was just like really reaching out into the crowd, because during her speech, I actually did hear like they sounded like hecklers.
They were, see, what it is, Thistle, is that every Sunday people go to Speaker's Corner to have these speeches, and they all stand on step ladders like that, and there's like a pathway where there's, on a normal cold winter's Sunday, there'd be like maybe 10, 12 different speakers on different soapboxes, and then people mingling in between the groups. Now, what it is, those people that go every week are mainly either Christians or Muslims arguing about Christianity or Islam. They're Muslims arguing amongst themselves about different kinds of Islam. And the other great demographic that go are anti-feminists and men's rights activists, justice for men and boys. Because when I went to do a recce about a month previously, there were quite a lot of those guys there. So they go every week. And so that was the people you heard heckling. They weren't trans activists, they were actual men's rights activists. And they weren't actually trying to disrupt the talk a lot of the time, but they wanted to get their signs, anti-abortion signs and stuff in the cameras.
Right. At one point I saw a fetus poster in the background, and I was like, oh God. But it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter if they're trans activists or so-called men's rights activists or anti-abortion activists. All of them hate women. They're all woman haters. And so, it just goes to prove that there's no sector of our society, be it liberal, conservative, even radical, that really stands strong for women. It's always, the women's movement has always been characterized by women standing up for ourselves, because really, how can we trust any male-led and driven and created organizations?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? How people get so angry at just women discussing being a woman and feminism. It really, really puts their backs up. Clearly.
Yeah. I loved all the signage in the background in the video of just the black sign with the stark white lettering.
It was to protect the women from the rain and the wind.
Right. So it had a
really looked great, didn't
use as well, but it looked great in the picture. So
it was really
nice
so because because it was sunny when we got there, and then I'd been watching the weather hour by hour forecast, at all the days, and it just right at the end, it was still saying that our window was going to be sunny, and then it just changed, and I was like, oh no, and then so it was sunny when we got there, and then by the time we'd set it all up, it always takes a while faffing around, doesn't it? And then just after the first few speeches, then the heavens opened. But it really did. We all just kind of huddled closer. But the shame was that it was quite, it was an hour and a half of speeches. And by the end of it, some of the women were really quite tired and cold and wet.
Yeah.
We were all going to go for a nice big photo by where the reform tree stood. But we just went straight to the pub instead because it didn't seem fair.
Yeah.
We were also bedraggled, but yeah, it was very nice. And then afterwards, it was so nice. We went to this nearby pub, which I had booked the basement of, which has quite a nice big basement. And when I'd booked it, I'd given the guy one of my Standing for Women business cards that Posey had done for me, and so he could confirm the booking. And then when I gave it to him, I thought, oh God, should I have given him that? Because he might look it up and cancel it. And then I didn't, and he was always really chatty in the text, so I thought there's obviously no problem. And then we got there, and they were brilliant. And then I asked him, and then they must have made loads of money out of us because they were serving food and drinks, and everybody stayed for ages, so quite a lot of people. And then I said to him, because then he'd obviously seen the T-shirts and spoken to people, and so I said to him, I wondered if you were going to Google who we were. And he said, well, I did actually Google who we are, and I'm a huge fan of Posey Parker.
Oh, that's great.
That was really nice. And it was such a great pub because it was such a big space, and it's completely free to book. So we're definitely going to go back there again.
Wow. Yeah. May we all be able to go back to the pub together with our sisters.
We will. We will. I think what's going to happen here. I mean, obviously, actually, no, you're right. Let's best not say what we think is going to happen because we could be so proved wrong. But I think it will all be all right in the end.
Well, I hold you in the pub in my heart,
Yeah.
sister.